Okay, so we're passing through downtown Little Compton.
Yep, we're in southern Rhode Island, just a stone's throw from the Massachusetts border.
Okay, so we're going to bear right up here onto Old Harbor Road.
Okay, got it.
And our destination is right there on the left. We can pull over here.
That looks almost like a 3-story lighthouse, but we're nowhere near the shore.
Yeah, that's the antique oddity we're here to see. It's been here for over a century now, and locals call it the Spite Tower. Hey, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 289 of the New England Legends podcast.
And I'm Ray Osier. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England one story at a time. We're glad you're riding with us as we explore roadside oddities, ghosts, monsters, UFOs, and all the odd history that makes New England like no other place. Most of our story leads come from you, so please reach out to us anytime through our website.
Now, before we figure out who built the Spite Tower and why, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Rhode Herbals.
Jeff, winter is going to melt away soon.
Good.
Time to shake off that seasonal affected disorder and focus on a happier version of you.
Then you've got to try Laughing Coyote tea from our friends at Rhode Herbals. This all-natural tea has loads of hibiscus, but also juniper berries, lemongrass, lemon balm, and more. And when you pour it, it's got this rich red color. Laughing Coyote has the perfect balance of tart and sweet tastes. It'll bring a smile to your face whether you're drinking it hot or cold.
Rhode Herbals also makes Laughing Coyote cream, made with some of the same ingredients as the tea. This all-natural balm soothes what ails you. You rub a little bit on your pulse points, on your neck, your wrists, and anywhere else that needs a little moisturizing and mood lifting. And because it's Rhode Herbals, you know it's made by hand from natural ingredients by people we know.
Let Rhode Herbals help support your healthy lifestyle. Check out the Rhode Herbals website to see all the great products, and you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit nuatiherbals.com. That's NUWATI herbals with an S.com.
All right, Jeff. So this tower does stand out.
Yeah, it does.
It's 3 stories tall. The base is maybe 12 feet by 12 feet, and it tapers as it goes up. There are windows on each story of the tower and on each side of the building. It's painted white, and the roof comes to a peak with a spire sticking out at the top. It looks almost like it could have been like a church steeple, but with windows.
Sure.
I guess if a church steeple and lighthouse had a baby, it would kind of look like this.
Sure, that's fair.
The tower is located right on the edge of Old Harbor Road. There's a small stone wall and just a few feet of grass between the tower and the street. Then there's a long driveway to a home built by Samuel Church in the late 1700s at the back of the property. We should mention this is private property, but you can see everything related to the tower easily from the street.
Right. That sums up the tower that stood here since 1905.
And they call it Spite Tower?
Yeah. So, Ray, have you ever done some grand gesture out of spite?
Well, I made out with my girlfriend big time in front of Anthony Michael Hall because he was hitting on her.
Wait. Anthony Michael Hall, the actor?
Yeah, that guy.
So wait, Weird Science, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, like that Anthony Michael Hall?
Yeah, he was on the Cape because he grew up there.
Okay.
I was out with a group of friends from the radio station where I was working, and my buddy was friends with him.
All right.
So we all went back to my buddy's house, and I found out Anthony had been hitting on my girlfriend at the nightclub, so I had to make my move in front of him.
So Anthony Michael Hall's probably still wondering what could have been between him and your old girlfriend.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Okay, so marking your territory in front of an 80s movie icon is one thing, but building a 3-story structure in your front yard is quite another.
Yeah, that's true, and this must have cost some money. Why is it here?
Well, to figure that out, let's head back to 1905.
It's the spring of 1905 here in the Adamsville section of Little Compton, Rhode Island. The population is just over 1,000 people, which is what it's been for pretty much the last century plus.
And it was just over a century ago when Samuel, Ebenezer, and Nathaniel Church came to Adamsville to open a store and salt works in town. Now the businesses thrived and the Church family prospered. Generational wealth is what we're talking about here.
Sure. Those Church brothers leave their property and business to their children, who grow the business and leave it to their children, and so on.
Right. So recently, Thaddeus Church willed Samuel Church's 18th century home to his great niece, Claudia, and her husband, Dr. John Hathaway.
The house sits on a good spot near the center of town, too. The only bummer is that John Hathaway's longtime former friend, Abraham Manchester, has a house nearby, as well as a store that Manchester owns and operates. So these two have to see each other a lot.
Yeah, so John and Abraham have had a bit of a falling out.
What happened to them?
Okay, though it's difficult to say for sure exactly how these things go down, there was a big legal case that made the news just a year ago. The April 12th, 1904 Fall River Globe summed up the story. Here, go ahead and give the article a quick read.
I'm skimming the story now. Okay, wow, this reads like a soap opera.
Yeah, I know, right? So here's the gist. A local man named Edward W. Howland died. His estate was worth about $100,000, no small amount, and he had a will that left $1,000 to his housekeeper and the rest to his church group.
Yeah, we should point out that his housekeeper claims that though she wasn't formally married to her employer, they took an oath before God, so she's his wife.
Right, and we've all been there. And the probate court kind of doesn't care. I mean, a person can do what they want in their will. So now Howland's family members are contesting the will, saying he was not of sound mind and body when he drew it up. In fact, he couldn't even sign the will because he could no longer write, so he just left an X on the document.
Character witnesses were brought before the court, basically tearing down Mr. Howland as a nut who didn't pay his taxes, didn't care about laws, and so on.
But one character witness on the rebuttal side was Dr. John Hathaway.
Right. We're back to John Hathaway.
Right. So Hathaway was the tending physician to Howland at the end of his life. Dr. Hathaway claims Howland's mind was sound when he made his new will.
The probate court, made up of Little Compton town officers, ultimately decided to claim the will was not sustained, which meant the legal fight between Howland's family and his church would continue. The people of Little Compton are furious because, to many, it looks like the courts are throwing out a person's last will and testament. And if that's the case, then what can you believe in?
So ultimately, the court appoints Abraham Manchester as custodian of the Howland property.
So the plot thickens. Everyone involved in the case lost at this point, except Abraham Manchester, John Hathaway's very good friend.
Right. So we have to assume the courts will work things out and the Howland estate will go to someone, either the church, his housekeeper/wife, or his next of kin. But for now, everyone in Little Compton is pretty bitter about the whole affair. And while we can't say for certain this is the root cause of the falling out between John Hathaway and Abraham Manchester, it could have been a big factor that, caused some friction.
Got it. So just to recap, all of that went down about a year ago. And now John Hathaway and his wife Claudia live in Samuel Church's former home. And Abraham Manchester lives and works nearby too.
Now, Abraham Manchester often sleeps in his store, to protect it from theft. He'll leave for a bit to go home and take his supper in the early evening, and then head back to his store for the night.
So Hathaway observes this nightly walk of his former friend between Manchester's store and his house. The times of the walk vary each day. Sometimes it could be 5 o'clock, sometimes it might be 6:30, but Manchester has never gone very long before eating his dinner and walking back to the store.
But then one day, Hathaway notices something. Look over there at the Manchester house, Ray.
Okay. Oh, I see the house.
Yeah. Okay, so look in the upstairs window.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a white handkerchief hanging in the window. And there goes Abraham walking home to get his dinner. I guess the handkerchief is the sign that dinner's ready.
Exactly. So John Hathaway figured out the dinner signal. He also figured out something else.
What's that?
So the line of sight between Manchester's store and his house pass right through the Hathaway property. So Hathaway constructs this 3-story tower right at the edge of his property by the street. And when it's finished...
Wow. The line of sight between Manchester's store and Manchester's house is now blocked. There's no way to signal for dinner.
Exactly. And the tower sticks out. I mean, nothing else looks like this anywhere in the region.
Why would Hathaway build something like this except
out of spite. And that brings us back to today.
And the Spite Tower was born.
Still here since 1905, still looking out of place, but...
Oh, there's always a but.
There's a but. So it turns out this tower was placed directly over the property's well. And in this case, they had to drill deep to get to the water. Now, the deeper you have to drill, the more you need gravity and hydraulics to get the water out. So in this case, the water tower had to be tall. Inside this tower is a well house, a water tank, and the former living quarters of the Hathaway chauffeur.
So this is a well house and a water tower.
Right.
Okay. But there's an uncountable number of other wells in the region, and none of them look like this.
That's true. This tower sticks out in almost every way that a piece of architecture can stick out, which is why it lent itself to so many stories and speculations. I mean, I think a lot of us have neighbors who have built fences or some other feature on their property that we didn't really like, something that stuck out and, would rather they remove it.
And if we don't get along with that neighbor,
right,
they may just keep that thing up out of spite.
Which is why we raise an eyebrow every time we pass this tower in Little Compton, Rhode Island. Spite can be a powerful force, whether it's making out with a girlfriend in front of Anthony Michael Hall or building a tower on your property.
And that brings us to After the Legend, where we drill deeper on a story and sometimes veer off course.
After the Legends, brought to you by our Patreon patrons. Our patrons are the lifeblood of everything we do here at New England Legends. We appreciate them so much. They help us with our hosting costs, our production, marketing, everything else it takes to bring you a new episode each week. It's just $3 per month. It's like buying me and Ray a fast food burger that we, have to cut in half and share. But a little goes a long way. If you can help us out, head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up. If you'd like to see pictures of the Spite Tower, just click on the link in the episode description or go to our website and look at episode 289. So, Spite, Anthony Michael Hall.
It was interesting.
I bet. What was he like?
Quiet. I don't know. I was angry at him at the time, so I didn't think too much about it.
Jerk.
I did ask him to sign an autograph, and I was pleasant to him. I can't remember if that was after or before. It was probably before.
Yeah.
And then I got that little piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
But he was sitting alone with two girls and not really being social. And didn't care that I recognized him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you do at that point? I mean, he was a big star in the 80s. Like that was.
He was. This is his low point, though. This is when. This was like, I got to say, this was 99.
Oh, so
and he hadn't done anything.
It was over.
Then he came back and did the Dead Zone. He's on the Goldberg. So
sure.
He's had a resurgence of some sort, but at the time he was nobody. So to be recognized must have been nice, but he just didn't treat me that nice.
Fair enough. So the definition of spite, by the way, it's to deliberately offend or annoy someone. I mean, all of us annoy and offend people, but we're not usually attempting to do so. It's just how we're made. But it turns out spite houses, spite farms, spite fences are a thing.
I can see that. Absolutely.
It's actually a legal precedent for, it's called a spite fence or whatever. So, you put a fence up to spite your neighbor, right? Although others say good fences make good neighbors. So you own your home and your property, but you do not own its view. For example, someone builds, you have a beautiful view of the ocean, and someone builds a big tall house on the other side of your street, now blocking your view of the ocean. You can get upset about that,
sure,
but no laws were broken. However, there's these legal cases where, people sue because they say, no, you intentionally did something that doesn't fit with the architecture, and it's literally like messing with me because you just hate me.
And they would have to prove the intent.
They have
to. We go back to our childhood when I stole his G.I. Joe doll.
Right.
He's hated me ever since, and now he just happens to build a 3-story house across the way.
Right, with a billboard that says, my neighbor's a jerk, right?
That might give it away, but even if you're being subtle about it, there's an argument to be had.
So some of these cases, though, the court sides on the case of the person that's complaining that, hey, this is a spite fence or a spite house or a spite farm. Like, people put up stuff. In Boston, and this, I don't want to say too much because I think this could be its own episode at some point. Have you heard of the Spite House?
No, I don't think so, no.
I know you've seen a picture of it. It's called the Skinny House. It's literally like 10 feet wide.
Okay.
And it's like 3 stories tall, and it's wedged between 2 giant brick buildings. And it's called it's called a Spite House because it was built long ago, and 2 brothers had gone off to war. One brother took like all the land and left this little tiny sliver, and his brother's like no room to build anything on, and his brother's like, I'll show you, and built this teeny tiny little house. Then it became like kind of the quintessential Spite House.
Oh, good for him.
Good for him. And when you walk down Boston, I mean, if you're walking down the street, if you saw a picture right now, you'd be like, oh, I know, I've seen that, right? But if you're walking down the street, you would absolutely stop what you're doing and turn and see it if you've never seen it before in Boston, because you're just like, oh, there's big buildings and this 10 feet wide, 10 feet wide.
That's not much.
Get out a tape measure and like be like, that's the width of your house. That's the outer walls. Like the interior walls are a little less than that.
Just enough for a bed.
That's about it. And so but I love the idea that people get so angry that they invest their time, money, and energy to spite someone else.
And so upset and effective that it becomes a legend.
Well, right.
Because these things happen every day.
Sure.
This became a legend.
But the thing is, it is a water tower. But when you drive by today, I've never seen anything. You've seen the picture. You've seen it. It doesn't look like anything you've ever seen. It looks sort of like a lighthouse. It looks sort of like a church steeple. I think what you said about it being the baby of a church steeple and a lighthouse sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's not like you've seen dozens of these and you go, oh, I know what that is. It's a water tower. They had a deep well.
Right.
It's like, no, I've never seen this anywhere. And it's right. I mean, if you put your arm out the car window, you could almost slap it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's how close we're talking, right?
Wow.
And so, anyway, I love the idea that you look at that and you go, well, there must be a reason that this is here, right here at the very edge of the property. And then you start these stories. But the thing is, I've heard, I had read other accounts about, the legend as to why it was built to spite the two friends. But then I found that court document in the papers. Something big went down. I mean, so the contested will, everyone that was on the probate court was not reelected. People were furious at them because they're just like, look, the guy's allowed to will his stuff to whoever he wants, right? And if the doctor says he's of sound mind and body, well, that's that, right? I mean, you don't have to like it, but like that's, we hear these stories all the time. Some millionaire marries like a old guy marries a young bombshell who then
she takes all the money from the family.
The family's furious, and they sue, but the guy was of sound mind and body. He can make those choices. That's or her. That's
unless she was using his hand to write sign his name.
Well, that's the thing,
see that
right?
In movies, just sign it quick. I'll help you.
Do you have a will?
No.
You should.
I know.
You could go online.
I know. We just keep putting it off
because yours is simple. There's not it wouldn't be overly complicated.
Do you want all this?
Yeah, if you could leave, just leave
it.
Why don't you leave everything to me, and I'll dole it out.
Okay,
per your wishes.
I have all my toys.
Yeah,
somebody's gonna have a hell of a time trying to box this up.
We're burying you with this stuff.
I hope so.
You're gonna need a triple wide casket because all this stuff's going with you. No one's gonna want it.
No, that's true. I know that.
But
I've tried to sell things before, show pictures, and people are like, I don't care. You're weird.
I have $1. You can have the $1.
There are stores that have this stuff,
right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I bought them,
right.
But for some reason, I'm the only one that cares about these toys.
The store's like, Ray, you have to live because you're all we've got.
Right. We don't want this stuff back.
No, for sure. But anyway, it's a cool little story, cool weird tower, and it sticks out. And when it sticks out, you need a reason.
One of those roadside oddities that we talk about all the time.
I love the roadside oddities.
If you've got a story you think we simply must check out, please reach out to us anytime through our website. We love your feedback, comments, and story leads. We're a community of legend seekers, so please share these episodes with your friends. The more of us out looking, the more stories we find.
We would like to thank our sponsor, Nuati Herbals. Thank you to our Patreon patrons, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
the bizarre is closer than you think.